Today, I want to bust a myth because there's really no 100% financing out there for real estate investors. And you got to know this. We fund a lot of our projects 100% of the purchase, 100% of the rehab. But that doesn't mean we fund 100% of the deal. Here's what I mean. There is more to every project, and you need to understand this as a real estate investor, because the faster you understand this, the faster you get this fixed, the easier, faster, more profitable real estate investing is going to be. If you look at settlement statements, if you look at profit and loss statements, what you see is even if your lender funds 100% of the purchase, 100% of the rehab, there's a lot more that goes into a lot more funds that need to be available, as we call it, available funds. And we know most investors or most lenders out there, like the Gavies, Lima Ones, RCN, Backflip, they'll fund up to 90% of the purchase, 100% of the rehab. So it's even less they'll fund. Even on top of that, that's not all you need. You need to look at settlement statements. Well, look at what else is involved with a project. Typically, I have a couple, three settlement statements here. Some of the things that they're not going to fund, or most are not going to fund, is lender fees, title fees, insurance. Some do, some don't, but most of them are not going to fund insurance costs. Then you also have unique things like in this one, option fee. Not every lender, or most lenders, are not going to fund option fees or wholesale fees. They may not, but most won't fund option fees, especially if it's over that 75% of the ARV. So when you look at settlement statements and you see all these things, all these items, list after list, from mortgage taxes to closing fees for the title company to closing costs, $1,100 there. In this transaction, 3.8% more had to come out of someone's pocket. That's $12,129. How about over here? We have everything from 2.5% origination, underwriting, legal fees, $1,000 for closing, $1,600 for title insurance, $150. All of these things add up to funds that the lenders are not going to fund. And it isn't anything out of the ordinary, but what we found after 30 years of doing this is so many people are just not ready for everything. This is just the closing. Here is a $250,000 loan where the fees, the costs of the pocket, everything from title company to lender to wholesale fees were not covered. And you're talking almost $13,000 on a $250,000 loan that was not covered by the lender, even after 100%. So just remember, part of real estate investing is understanding how much you need for every project. If you set this up correctly, if you set this up right away, it makes investing so much easier. The people who come to us, who come to any transaction and already know that they're going to need probably 120%, if not 130% of the purchase and rehab in available funds. Now your lender, they're going to cover, like I said, somewhere between 90% of the purchase, 100% of rehab, but they're not going to cover the rest of the items. Because if you look at a profit and loss, here's a profit and loss from one of these transactions after 3 months. Profit and loss, they show, they have to pay mortgage, interest, $29.26, utilities, $244. And then they have the next month, once again, they have the interest payment, $29.26. This month, they actually had to cover some materials that were not part of the original budget. Remember, if anything goes over budget, it's not in the original budget, you're going to have to cover this. Once again, don't worry about this. Just be prepared for it, because if you are prepared, you're going to get the project done faster. You're going to spend less on interest, taxes, insurance, all those things, put more money in your pocket. Our whole goal here is to make sure you're always 120% funded, that you set this up correctly up front. If you set this up correctly, everything goes smoother, always having the available funds. They had utilities, they had some labor. So just in this case, they had to put a little over $10,939 out of their pocket. They didn't even have to come up with a down payment on this one, but if they did, that would have been another $23,000, meaning $46,000 still had to come out of their pocket if the lender is going to fund most of it. But let's look at something else. That's purely out of their pocket costs. But there's also something called cash flow. That means, money moving in and out of your accounts as a project goes along. In this case, they had to pre-fund or pre-order some materials, like maybe doors and windows and stuff like that, so that they're there for your contractors. Their contractors could get on site, get the project done, and not be delayed. Because remember, speed is key in real estate investing. Speed to buy, speed to get the property done, the repairs done, so either on the market or refinanced if it's a BRRRR or something like that. And they also had to put some money down for their contractor to make sure that they're on site when they are. There's a lot of times where it makes sense to pre-fund or pay your contractor on time while you're waiting for escrows. Yes, you're going to get that money back, but you're not going to get it back for maybe, a few days or a week. Your contractors, if you want the good ones to stick with you, stay on your project, you have to have the funds available to pay them. So in this case, instead of $11,000 over here, they had to come up with about $23,000. Yes, some of that's going to be reimbursed, but they had to have available funds besides their down payment for a project like this. When you're looking at projects, there are closing costs you have to look at. There are monthly costs that run through that you're going to have to look at and be on top of that. Because if you're spending time trying to figure out how to make sure your contractor is paid on time, make sure your escrow information, your inspections are done, and all that stuff before you get pay them, that's not going to sit well with your contractors. It's not going to also sit well if you don't have the materials on site to make sure the project is done right. You need to make sure, if you're an investor, that you have these available funds set up. It is not an extra cost. It is part of your budget. But what becomes an extra cost is when it takes you an extra month, 2 months, 3 months, because you don't have the funds available to make sure your project is working on time. Honestly, the number one thing that we see the issues with deals that just take 6 months instead of 3 months or 9 months instead of 6 months is because they don't have the available funds when they go over budget, pre-funding escrows, like I said, paying them before, or if they just want to make a change. What if they want to make a change to the project that will get them more money, but the lender has already set their budget? They're not going to give you anything besides what's in the budget. So you have to have those funds available, because maybe putting in another 5 or 10 grand is going to get you another 30 or 40 grand on the other side, or even sell it faster. Remember, we're talking about speed. You have to get the property done fast so you don't miss markets. So you get on to the next project. So you eliminate some of the stress. Creating freedom in real estate investing comes down to a little bit more freedom of mind because your money is set up correctly. And like I mentioned, after 30 years of doing this, this is the number one issue that I see, that people stretch things out and even lose money on real estate because it's taking too long to try to figure out how to pay people, how to keep people on the project or getting the materials there in time. So make sure you have 120%. Make sure you have that set aside at least 120%. If you want to know what that looks like, we have a great calculator, free to use for right now at least. It's the Money Buckets calculator. Shows you how much each project you'll need for your costs, but also how much you'll need for maybe, surprises or escrow pre-funds, how much the lender is going to give you, and then, what you should have available. And when we talk about available funds, we're talking about real good business credit cards, not personal credit cards, HELOCs, lines of credit, real private money, and even a partner's, whatever it takes to make sure those funds are there. So all you're doing is finding good properties, getting them under contract, getting them done on time and back in the market or refinanced in a specific time to make sure you make the money. This is a business. We're all about making money here. Make it easier for you to do this. Check out our Money Buckets calculator. If you have some other interests, you want to learn a little bit more, we have some really good courses online about some of these ways to get these available funds, because you have to have your money bucket with available funds, funds that are sitting there, not costing you any money unless you're using them. And then you have to understand cash flow. And once the project closes, you have to clear those out so you're not accumulating debt, but it just goes from project to project. So we're all about making investing easier, faster, and more profitable. Check out our website, thecashflowcompany.com, or TCF Coach if you're looking for more of the classes, calculators. And if you want us to help you, we even have some coaching. We'll catch you on the next video.